Morning ritual number 562. You pour a cup of coffee, you call up the New York Times on your tablet, you start to shake your head back and forth as you read the news, and your coffee and your heart grow a little cold as you read of all that's going on in the world. Sighing and cursing are often part of this ritual. Morning ritual number 166. First, you put the kettle on low, and then you stretch your body out on the floor, letting go of sleepiness as you become aware of your muscles moving into action, your arms, your legs, you rise, and you finish with the only yoga move that you know, which is the salutation to the sun. Now you steep the tea bag for exactly 3 minutes, because that is how you make a perfect cup of tea. And when that is done, you place the steaming mug of tea next to your journal, which you write in as the sun rises. Morning ritual number 327. You strike the match with attention and light your cigarette, listening for that sound of the tab on the soda can releasing its effervescence. You reach out with deliberation to throw yesterday's can into the back seat so you can place the new offering in the cup holder. You do, however, plan to recycle the cans later. Okay. I am not a morning person, though those of you who have gotten email from me before the hour of 6 a.m. realize that I am often up before the hour of 6 a.m. And maybe that is why I have found myself thinking recently about how we begin our days, about how we end our days, and about whether our routines matter and whether it matters that we take the time and the space to create rituals in our lives. A wise colleague of mine was once accosted by someone who said they were tired of hearing about the word worship because they did not worship anything. Ah, said my colleague, everybody worships something. Now, it might not be the something of your choosing, that's the thing, but there's something that has that spot of ultimate worth in your life. And so in the same way, some of you may have been a little dismayed to see that I came back after my summer break and start with a sermon that has ritual in the title. So I stand here with the shadow of my illustrious colleague saying this: everyone has their own rituals, their own repeated practices that define the scope and the stretch of their days, so they just might as well think about what they are. You know, summers often give us breaks, not always, but sometimes give us breaks in the routine. They offer these little windows through which we can see the expanse of our lives and glimpses of what we want to do more of and what we want to do less of. And families, I think, do this a lot in the summer because they're freed temporarily of the burdens of school routines. There are vacations that offer that opportunity to break the routine. Either your vacations or the vacations that other people take where they come and break your routine. And then there are the longer days, which seem to invite us to stretch out and be daring and be imaginative, imagining our way, if you will, into a different future, if only for that 1 week off. Sometimes it's just the passage of time or the shock of change or loss that helps us re-examine our rituals and rites anew, and to find, once again, a renewed appreciation for that gift called life. Evening ritual number 779. Even before you push your chair back from the desk, signaling that you are done with the day's work, she is there, your four-legged, that would be hard, four-legged, wet-nosed guardian angel. And you pull open the sliding door and go for your shoes, but by then she's already way down the path chasing squirrels, and you walk a little faster to get to that place where you can actually see the sun slip below the ridge. And as you do, you pause and you take a moment to be grateful for whatever you can find to be grateful for in that day. Morning ritual number 25. You push the day's dishes around in the sink. You create kind of like a little crater where you can fit the bowl for the cat who is squalling in a really unpleasant way. And you open the fridge next, and then you have that little special sidestep you do to avoid the falling Tupperware. Your greeting for the day involves going back to bed and pulling the covers over your head, which I'm sure none of our mugs have ever done. Afternoon ritual number 6009. There's a small collection of objects before you, and you know each one, its feel, its shape, even its scent. And you can make out those shapes by the light of the candle in the corner of the room where you sit each afternoon. Before you are the pictures of all of those who have come before you, your ancestors, those you love, and your eye lingers on each face. On the very special afternoons when you do this, you hold your toddler in your lap and say their names to her. David Gilbert, in his book Stumbling Towards Happiness, points out that the greatest achievement of humanity is not actually the ability to create things. We often think that's what it is. Because we've actually now invented machines that can actually create things. The greatest ability, he claims, is our ability to envision a future that we have not yet experienced. We're not perfect in doing this, he points out. We're hindered by our tendency to sort of assume the future is going to be some kind of rollout of the present, an extension. But we have this ability to imagine our way into something that we have never even known, something we have never experienced, and even to conceive how we might be part of making it different when we think it's time to hit the reset button. So Gilbert points out that our true power as a species may be our ability to choose and use that ability to create a new future for ourselves. He says our brains have a unique structure that allows us to mentally transport ourselves into future circumstances, and then to ask ourselves how it feels to be there. If nature has given us a greater gift, he says, no one has named it. So what allows us to do this is the frontal cortex of the brain, that place that allows us to break patterns and imagine that which we haven't seen. And it's not easy. Experts say that it takes at least 21 days to form a new habit. And many of us find it hard to kind of find the persistence to do that, to try something that will actually become a different part of our life. So the routines are actually a sort of training wheel, if you will, that allow us to ride with confidence later into the futures that we want to inhabit, and to avoid those terrible, horrible, no good, very bad days, or at least to minimize them. Gretchen Rubin is another author, and she spent a year very consciously doing what she called the Happiness Project, setting out each month to change particular routines in her life through conscious attention to bad habits and distracting routines. One month, she brings her order to her physical space, decluttering and cleaning. Another, she thinks very consciously and reduces, she gives herself an allotment of the number of times she can nag her children and husband in any given day. She makes up routines to be playful, she takes up meditation, and then she concludes this. The feeling of control is an essential element of happiness. It's a better predictor of happiness than, say, income. Having a feeling of autonomy, being able to choose what happens in your life or how you spend your time is, in fact, crucial. Happiness is about putting into our daily lives the things that nourish us and then making sure they are in order, which may be why Annie Lamott says that one of her definitions of God is that it's an acronym that refers to those things that point in the good, orderly direction. Lamott's God is the one who requires her to participate in ordering the world, and she writes, "When people say cheerfully, 'Let go and let God,' I just want to stab them in the forehead." I know that's not the most Jesus-y and evolved thing you'll hear today, but that's how I feel. Morning ritual number 8. You hear the snooze alarm. You hit the snooze alarm. You hear the snooze alarm. You hit the snooze alarm. You hear the snooze alarm. You hear something hit your bedroom door. It's your housemate who's really tired of hearing you hit the snooze alarm. Your housemate yells something not repeatable on Sunday morning, a few words that communicate with precision that he's tired of hearing your morning ritual. And one more morning ritual. You begin your day with a simple prayer, that you are grateful for that day. Sometimes you do that prayer while you're still lying in bed. Sometimes you do it when you're up, looking out at the glorious world around you. But you always begin with that prayer. Ritual connects us to that which is larger than we are and which holds us in the bigness of what we want to do and be. It allows us to get a toehold, to do what we know we want to do, and to get through those times when we have pain and frustration and anger and worry. Our small rituals, too, I believe, teach us the patience to stay engaged in our larger work of reordering the world that we live in, a world that so needs us to be engaged in doing that work. So does it matter if we take Nichiko Nwana's advice and we greet the day with gratitude? Or if we take a page from Gretchen Rubin's book and we clean closets as a path to happiness? That did not, yeah. I'm with you, those people that thought that was a ridiculous idea. That'll be next weekend. There is no simple formula for finding happiness, David Gilbert reminds us. And he also points out that when we make conscious choices, we affect those around us. That is how we reorder the world. One of the myths we stumble over, he says, is that money will buy happiness. It doesn't. But he says, when many people make money in an orderly society, it creates an economy which actually does raise the quality of being. So it's complicated. Because what our big brains can do is to help us envision a future, a far-off future, which eludes the machines, one that includes a world that is more fair and more just, where people have places to live, all people have places to live, where all people, we can imagine this, have food to eat, where people are treated with dignity and in which every person's voice is heard and honored. The same patience that it takes to keep trying to meditate correctly or to be grateful or to remember that we have a body consistently is the same patience it takes to remember that we are all citizens of this one and precious world. So I invite you as we close today to think about this for a moment. What are your routines? How do you spend the energy of your days? What are your rituals? What space do you make on a regular basis for your largest hopes for yourself, for those you love, and for the world upon which we all depend? Enter into this day and into this week with hope. May we be the ones to make it so.